Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's PC gaming news. It's been a little while since the last video. We got quite a few big stories to catch up on. I've been playing some games recently, lots of exciting new things to talk about, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. Let's jump right into the news. So first up, I want to talk about the closed beta test that we had for Elyon. This took place last week. This is that upcoming MMO that is, believe it or not, still planned to release one day after New World. That is likely going to change, by the way. This isn't even meant as a slight to Elyon either. I'm just saying, why would you launch your less hyped MMO a day after one of the most hype MMOs this year? I digress though, let's talk about Elyon. So I played the beta for a few days, and I came away thinking it was okay, but just okay. Far from great, and honestly, probably not worth any more of my time. I will say on the positive side, I think the combat is pretty solid. It's definitely one of its strong suits. If you kind of like the cleave style action combat, it's been drawing lots of comparisons to Terra. It also reminds me quite a bit of Black Desert Online. Most of the PvE fights are against like 5 or more targets, with the majority of your attacks being either AoE or cleave abilities. So basically, you're running around gathering a handful of enemies and then taking them all down at once. I also absolutely loved the game's use of gliders. I just think it feels fantastic getting to glide around the world pretty much anywhere, and you unlock this really early on. And I thought some of the area music was good in some of these towns. I thought it sounded pretty nice, but outside of those few things, I came away fairly certain that I won't be playing this at launch. The overall world design felt super lackluster, from the visuals to the layout and presentation. It really felt like I was playing a game designed in 2005 or something. Like, yes, these graphics look way better than any MMO from 2005, but it all still felt really dated. I mean, it is older, running, I believe, on Unreal Engine 3, but that's not really the main focus. Graphics, whatever. There was also like no motion to the world. Everything was very, very static. It really felt like things were just plopped in place. I think that's a big part of what made everything feel so dead for me. To wrap it up, I would say that it just wasn't immersive or engaging of a world to be in, and MMOs really need to do that to keep me interested. On top of that, there was just an overabundance of systems that seem specifically centered around grinding. I do appreciate that the game looks to have deep customization, but normally I prefer my games hide the carrot and stick that they want me chasing, or at least give me incentive for wanting to play longer from compelling gameplay or storytelling or just a world that's fun to explore. Not a literal menu, which the game has, a menu telling you, please stay logged in for 120 minutes straight and you'll get these sweet rewards. So much of the design feels way too much like a mobile game, and none of this even touches on the game's cash shop, by the way, which I hear is pretty bad. If nothing else, I will say that Elyon feels better to play than Bless Unleashed did, but still not good enough or interesting enough to make me want to commit any more time to the game, especially if it does launch right after New World. There's no way, there's no competition, and there's all the other MMOs that I want to revisit this year. Like, I'm playing Guild Wars 2 right now, I want to go back to ESO, and I would like to check out 14. After playing the beta, Elyon is going to be a pass for me. Last time we covered New World on the show, the game had just been delayed from its planned launch in August until next month on September the 28th. Since then, I've made a video talking about and taking a look at some of the upcoming content planned for New World that we learned about thanks to data miners. We got a sneak peek at Brimstone Sands, this desert region that looks to be the next zone coming to the game. We learned about multiple new expeditions and PvE arenas that are coming. There were some lines in the code that mentioned things like PvP arenas, scheduled tournaments, hard mode versions of dungeons, and even an extension to the game's main story quest. We saw some new weapons planned, including this Void Gauntlet, a blunderbuss, and a pistol. And we also got a look at an early version of the game's cash shop, including the name of its currency, how much it is planned to cost, along with quite a few images of some of the planned cosmetic outfits. There's some really interesting stuff in here. Now, I go into a lot more detail in that video if you want to check it out. Outside of this, things have been fairly quiet since the closed beta from New World's official channels. Like, we haven't seen any new blog post or content updates on their website. Over on their YouTube channel, they have released 2 lore videos going into the backstory of the Angry Earth and Ancients, but that's basically been about it. Nothing big or significant in terms of new information about new content or things talking about the game. That was until just yesterday. New World did have a presence at this year's Gamescom. There was a little event that revealed a couple of things. There was this mini trailer, really kind of just like a highlight reel showcasing some flashy cuts of different bits of gameplay footage, locations, stuff like that. Nothing super interesting here, but what is interesting is they revealed a brand new beta prior to launch. There's going to be an open beta running from September the 9th to the 12th. So this one will be completely open. It is not going to require any sort of access gaining. You don't have to look for keys or do Twitch drops or anything. Anyone can jump in and play. A few bits of notable information. It is going to be taking place in a new client. So if you played the closed beta, you're going to have to re-download the game basically. People can capture, stream, record, everything. And finally, they also wanted people to know, no, none of this is going to carry over into the full launch. This keeps coming, like almost never does. But yeah, there was also an interview with Scott Lane. They talked about some of the interesting bits. They also showcased one of the upcoming weapons, that Void Gauntlet that we just talked about a moment ago. And they talked about the fact that they're going to be continuing to add new features post-launch, more things for players to do, responding to more player feedback in general. All this is pretty good stuff. But frankly, outside of that, it seems like at the moment they're really just focused on getting the game ready for that upcoming launch. I mean, really, we're only a month away now, and they've got their heads down and they're really concentrated on getting this thing as polished as possible before it comes out, which I think is for the best. This is really it. After multiple failed attempts at developing games, all of their eggs are clearly in the New World basket. I just really can't imagine what is going to happen to Amazon Game Studios if New World also fails. I do know, yeah, they're publishing Lost Ark, which as of now is still planned to release this year, and I assume this will do fairly well if its launch in other regions is any indication. But they didn't make Lost Ark. They're just facilitating its localization and Western release. As happy as I'm sure they are to take a cut of all of Lost Ark's Western market sales, they've got over 5 years of failed attempts at developing their own games. So there's a lot hinging on New World's success, I would imagine, and I do expect in the next few weeks, Amazon will be ramping up marketing for the game for that very reason. Now, I say all this while also being fairly certain that the game will do pretty well. During the closed beta alone, they had over 200,000 concurrent players, which is just an absurd number. This is the first brand new MMO with like AAA quality visuals, gameplay, world design in a long time. It's been many years since we've gotten a new big budget MMO coming out, not just an expansion for the big ones, or not one of these Kickstarter or crowdfunded MMOs, which by their very nature tend to be smaller in scope and size and overall vision. Like I've said multiple times here on this channel, I have pretty high hopes for New World. I have mostly enjoyed and had a good time with the game during its last 2 beta tests. Yeah, there are things I'd like to see added. Yes, there are things I would like to see improved. But overall, my time with New World has been a good experience. Will it consume my life for years? I highly doubt it. Fortunately though, I no longer look for or even want that from the games that I play. Just like give me a good fun experience and an immersive world that I can roam around with for a few weeks at a time, enjoy myself. Bonus points if you let me do this with friends and have some like open world PvP maybe. If you give me that, I'm usually pretty satisfied. Honestly, that's all I'm looking for. You might remember just the other week we covered the PC launch of Bless Unleashed and what I considered its rather surprising success. Having played the beta for several hours, I was left pretty unimpressed and figured this was just one last attempt for them to recoup money from the ruins that were Bless Online. Well, despite my impression, the game seemed to be quite popular, to date peaking at just over 76,000 concurrent players. Given the game's continued mediocre reputation, sitting at mixed with nearly 20,000 user reviews, who out there is playing and presumably enjoying the game? Well, just a few days ago, MMO YouTuber and Earth 2 expert Kira TV did a video diving into who exactly those players are. The short answer: it's predominantly people playing from China. From the game's client, he launched and took a look at each available region, noticing that both North America and Europe had only one server each, which during their prime time wasn't even breaking an average or low population. Same was the case for both Korea and Japan, but when checking the Asia region, China had 4 dedicated servers, each with an average or crowded population. Now, this also lines up with the fact that according to SteamDB, Bless Unleashed has been seeing its peak player count during what would be considered primetime hours in Asia, where during the primetime hours in EU and NA, the population has been at its lowest. All of this to say, the game does have quite a large player base, it's just predominantly in the Chinese market. Now, Kira mentions that part of the reason for this may be the fact that Bless Online never launched in that region, so there's no pre-existing bias against the franchise from that player base. But there's also just the fact that this is a free-to-play game and there's lots of people willing to try something new that costs them nothing but their time. It's also pretty likely that there are a lot of players using this as just something to hold them over until New World launches. I have seen that sentiment quite a bit from people who have talked about this on videos where I've talked about Bless Unleashed in the past. Whatever the reasoning is and wherever these players are playing from, Bless Unleashed is clearly doing significantly better than its predecessors, and I don't doubt that the people who say they're genuinely enjoying playing the game right now are having a good time. Part of me is still interested in diving in further out of just pure morbid curiosity. We'll see though. There are so many other games out there that I do think are good that I want to spend my time with. I don't know how likely I can justify spending any of my time on a game that I've tried and really thought was bad. The saga of Final Fantasy XIV's recent surge in popularity continues on. They have once again had to halt new character creation. This week, the entire Aether data center had its servers set to congested, meaning it's not currently possible to make new characters on any of those servers. This is especially interesting in Final Fantasy XIV because this is a game where one single character can play as every class. So it's not so much likely that there's a ton of new people wanting to make alts and they're being prevented from doing so. It's more likely that these are just new players who can't make their very first character. Now, the company has said they are looking into some long-term solutions to deal with this, such as adding new servers, but in the meantime, players will have to wait for more space to open up in the Aether data center region. It's worth noting that other data centers do have space available, but if you wanted to make a character on Aether servers in particular to play with friends that you might have there, you simply can't. You will just have to wait. I think the funniest part about all of this is we are still a few months away from their upcoming major expansion, Endwalker, and almost certainly that is going to bring an even further surge in players. It's crazy. This remains one of the most insane MMO stories of 2021 for me. We've got this game that launched in 2010, was universally considered bad, went back into development, relaunched a few years later with a much better reception, and then slowly over the course of these past several years has continued to get more popular, to the point where some people consider this the best game in the entire Final Fantasy franchise, and one of, if not the best current MMO on the market. Now we're at this point where we've got this 11-year-old game that is seemingly getting more popular than it's ever been before, to the point that they're having to stop players from making new characters and spin up entirely new servers. Like, what is going on? This has got to be one of the best examples of a game focusing on quality that over time, they've been able to reap the benefits from. Now, certainly a large part of this is the recent mass exodus from World of Warcraft, everything that's been going on with Blizzard and people just not wanting to support the company anymore and looking for a new MMO to call home. But none of that matters if Final Fantasy isn't good in its own right. There's a lot of other alternatives that people could be playing, but it seems like a lot of people are funneling into Final Fantasy XIV. Kudos to the game. I will join the ranks at some point once I find the time. I've been busy with other things, which actually the next story we'll talk about. Guild Wars 2. I'm so thrilled to have a story to talk about this week because, yeah, this is the MMO that I have been spending the most time with recently. I've been sinking some pretty sizable hours to the detriment of my YouTube videos into this game. So I started out by leveling up a thief a few weeks ago, and then recently I've been spending some time on my warrior, and now I'm also considering giving the necromancer a shot. I'm basically just going through this constant struggle of trying to pick a class that I think I will enjoy the most. But overall, I am having a hell of a time with the game, and I really hope I can get myself lined up, get myself to endgame, and just prepared for the upcoming End of Dragons expansion that's planned for 2022. In the meantime, though, we have been getting sneak peeks of some of what's to come. Most recently, we've been getting a look at elite specializations. Now, from what I understand, these basically open up new ways to play for the current classes, giving each of them access to new weapon types, and in doing so, also access to new abilities. So far we've gotten a look at the elite specs coming for the Mesmer, Necro, and Guardian. First, there is the Virtuoso. This is a Mesmer spec that's going to allow them to use daggers, and they can summon these psionic blades. The Harbinger is a Necro spec that uses pistols, letting them shoot corrosive bullets, and they can also self-immolate and get stronger abilities. And then the Willbender is a Guardian spec that lets them use offhand swords, and this apparently has loads of mobility. So there are going to be elite specs planned for every other class in the game. This is just what we've seen so far. We'll likely be getting the reveal of the future ones in these coming months. And then also they just released a video showcasing the skiffs and fishing. Both of these are pretty much what you expect. For fishing, you'll be able to fish in the game's various waters. There will be different kinds of fish, and you're going to use them for special crafting and food recipes. And skiffs are just these multiplayer boats that you can use to move around the waters and fish from. Yeah, I always find it so funny which MMO I tend to get attached to throughout the course of every year, but Guild Wars 2 is that game right now. I do think I'm going to take a break. Like I said earlier, I want to dive into ESO some more, and I would like to give 14 a shot. I should probably focus on 14 because that's the game that has the most recent upcoming expansion with Endwalker. But regardless, yeah, I've been playing a lot of Guild Wars 2. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited for End of Dragons. Next up, we've got the hardcore PvP MMO Mortal Online 2. Well, there's a beta test coming very soon. This will be running from Monday, September 6th to Sunday, the 12th. You can register for this on their website or on Steam to get access. Now, this is going to be an open stress test, so they're going to be letting in lots of players, and for that reason, you probably shouldn't expect it to go super smoothly. It is meant to push their servers to the limit. This game has been getting quite a bit of positive buzz around it. I remember during the last test, which I think was like 1 or 2 months ago, I've been hearing a lot of good things about it. Now, I never got the chance to try it myself, but I am hoping to spend some time and play this upcoming beta. The game is said to have a fairly in-depth melee combat system, and like I said, it's also a hardcore PvP MMO, which means you're going to be able to get killed and lose your stuff. So if you don't like that, this might not be the one for you. Now, since that last test, apparently they've added some new things. There's some new spiritism spells, AI support, pet equipment crafting. There's workbench learning. There have been some UI improvements. There's an early version of the mailing system. They've added new animations, and there's also going to be a brand new city for players to explore. So yeah, there's going to be some tests coming up soon. The game is apparently going to be launching into early access on October 26th, and this is going to be an MMO that requires a subscription to play, which honestly at this point I'm just so sick of cash shops and microtransactions flooding these games, and I'll take a sub fee, honestly. I know it's not for everybody. A lot of people hate the sub fee, and I totally get it, because who wants more monthly bills? But just to play an MMO that doesn't have a ton of microtransactions and cash drops and boosters and all those things, I think could be somewhat refreshing. Next up, Destiny 2. We got the reveal of their next upcoming expansion, the Witch Queen, in which they say we'll be facing enemies that are unlike any we've encountered before, exploring a brand new destination and the home of the Lucent Brood, which are hive enemies infused with light. These are not new enemies, Bungie. Okay, whatever. The expansion is also going to include a new weapon crafting feature, letting players forge weapons complete with unique combinations of mods, shaders, and stats. There's also a new weapon type, the Glaive. This is a first-person melee weapon capable of powerful melee attacks and mid-range blast. It can also work as a shield. There's the Throne World. This is that new destination, and it's the home of the Witch Queen and her Lucent Brood of brand new hive enemies infused by the light. There's also going to be new activities, including a new 6-player matchmade activity, a new raid set in the heart of the Sunken Pyramid ship, and much more. The Witch Queen expansion will be launching on February 22nd, 2022, 2022. And like with every major Destiny update, I am most certainly going to play this. I'll play for a couple weeks, check out all the new stuff, and then as soon as I get on that weekly gear upgrade treadmill, I'm peacing out of there. A couple of other things I just want to briefly mention before we wrap up here. Halo Infinite is said to be launching without its co-op multiplayer. I do not care though, because when it comes to Halo, I am very excited for this game, but it's mostly just the competitive multiplayer, the PvP match-made stuff. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. I'm really, really hopeful. Also, did they reveal if they're going to be doing a Battle Royale for Halo? Don't hate me. I know, Battle Royales, you're sick of them, but I kind of still like them. So the tiny MMO Book of Travels, which we've talked about a few times on the channel, that has been delayed. It was supposed to launch in just a few days, but it's been pushed back. They gave no new date. It's one of those when it's ready situations. And then finally, Sea of Thieves. They recently had their Pirate's Life update. Apparently it brought in over 4.8 million active monthly players. That was breaking any previous record they had for the game, apparently. That's pretty exciting. Sea of Thieves, I really loved Sea of Thieves when it launched. I know the game got a lot of crap. It was one of those very lukewarm receptions, but the sailing was so fun and it was such interesting mechanics, and just the world was so good to explore. It was such an immersive game, which I guess goes to show you just kind of like my preferences. If you have a really immersive world to be in, even if some of the stuff on the edge, hell, even if the combat isn't that great, with a really immersive world and a good enough game around it, I can really enjoy something. Sea of Thieves, I liked. It reportedly has just been getting better and better. I will have to revisit it at some point. I just don't know when that is going to be. That's my problem, is the games I like the most require so much time, and so many of them I want to revisit. How do you do it? How do you even... But it's impossible. It's impossible. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's PC Gaming News. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed these updates. I like to keep this going weekly as long as people keep enjoying it. A lot of really cool stuff to talk about, by the way. Pretty exciting episode for me. But that's going to do it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.